Beginning in October, the Army plans to station an active unit inside the United States for the first time to serve as an on-call federal response in times of emergency. The 3rd Infantry Division's 1st Brigade Combat Team has spent 35 of the last 60 months in Iraq, but now the unit's training for domestic operations. The unit will soon be under the day-to-day control of U.S. Army North, the Army service component of Northern Command. The Army Times reports this new mission marks the first time an active unit has been given a dedicated assignment to Northern Command. The paper says the Army unit may be called upon to help with civil unrest and crowd control. The soldiers are learning to use so-called non-lethal weapons designed to subdue unruly or dangerous individuals and crowds.
The fewer guns we have in the world, the better it is for mankind.
They are as determined as ever.
Mr. Chairman, small arms and light weapons are truly weapons of mass destruction.
The United Nations conspiring with the majority of its members to do what they've already done to their own citizens. Deny you your firearm freedom.
In New York, right here in our own shores, we've got a Trojan horse. They want to set U.S. firearms policy. They want to take the decision away from the U.S. electorate and undermine our Constitution.
That's really their ultimate agenda, to bring the United States down from the pinnacle of freedom to simply being another one of these socialist states where the government controls everything.
And just who are these gun grabbers? Countries like Japan.
We strictly punish and control the possession and the use of small arms by civilians.
Britain and Australia.
Firearm owners in Australia must also demonstrate a genuine reason for ownership.
The Netherlands.
It's my firm conviction that the illicit trade cannot be tackled without involving the legal arms trade.
And Canada, led by its former Minister of Justice, Alan Rock.
Registration is the cornerstone of the entire strategy.
Alan Rock is now Canada's voice at the United Nations. His anti-gun agenda is now front and center at the world stage. That's scary.
Scary because the United Nations continues to get away with what it does best.
It's a stealth operation.
Secretly scheming behind closed doors to outlaw your guns.
We must not wait until 2006.
Accountable to no one.
People don't get elected to the UN. And that's the really scary thing. How the hell do you get rid of a UN bureaucrat?
These are the biggest human rights violators in the world, and they're trying to tell people in the United States that we shouldn't have certain civil liberties.
But the UN is not pushing its agenda alone. There's a propaganda machine working every day, targeting the NRA and gun ownership as evil. It's called IANSA, the International Action Network on Small Arms.
This is not about military small arms. This is not about rocket launchers.
What they're really after is my Winchester hunting rifle.
Just log on to IANSA's website, and you'll see it's made up of more than 500 anti-gun NGOs, or non-governmental organizations.
They are absolutely awesome in terms of the power they have.
Power and a plot that is being engineered right here in London, in that building behind me where IANSA is headquartered. Imagine, nearly 230 years after the American Revolution, there are still forces at work here on British soil, determined to trample on your freedoms.
These people believe that ultimately they know how to live your life a heck of a lot better than you do.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Peters. But the plot gets even thicker. The woman who heads up IANSA, Rebecca Peters, led the gun ban movement in Australia.
It's time for tough gun laws.
gun owners forced to surrender their firearms to the saw blade, scrap heap, and blast furnace. Now, Rebecca Peters is determined to do the same to American gun owners. We phoned Ms. Peters here at her office and also emailed her requesting an interview, but she never called us back.
Rebecca Peters is like a live hand grenade with the pin almost out. She is an extremely dangerous person.
Dangerous not only because of what she's done, but because of who she knows.
She is good at getting funding, and funding is the key.
Working for gun hater and billionaire George Soros' Open Society Institute, Rebecca has secured a seemingly endless supply of money for the UN's global gun control agenda.
The pro-gun forces are outnumbered, outspent, 20 to 30 to 1. It's huge.
We have thus far contributed $1.87 million US.
The amount of funding that they're receiving from governments around the world is absolutely staggering.
Britain, one of the biggest. After doing some probing, we found out it gave a $2 million grant in 2001 to IANSA through Britain's Global Conflict Prevention Pool's Small Arms Strategy. With titles like that, you can see why the money trail is impossible to trace.
I don't know if 10 bloodhounds searching this stuff out with 100 accountants can find it.
In fact, you probably didn't know UNICEF is a partner in all of this.
Think of the little kid who showed up at your door on Halloween with a UNICEF box. Would you say no? But it's also an instrument to take away your firearms.
So the U.S. taxpayers get to pay for a lot of this trash that comes out of the UN to ban what really is a human right.
But UN supporters like Amnesty International don't see it that way.
The U.S. citizens do not have a blanket right to use these weapons as they feel fit.
They think gun owners are primitives who have to be brought into the modern world.
And attorney Mark Benenson should know. He was the former chairman for the American branch of Amnesty International. His cousin founded the organization in England in 1961.
I recall how horrified they were when they found out that I was a life member of the National Rifle Association. The Brits were paralyzed with dismay, and they didn't know what to do about it.
But Mark insists that what they're doing now is not the answer to a safer world.
Not at all. I think it will be a safer world for tyrannical governments, and a safer world for the criminals who don't give up their firearms. Certainly will not be a safer world for ordinary people.
England and Australia have already proven that. Their gun bans have backfired, crime skyrocketed, and innocent victims left defenseless.
Yeah, the government's banned private ownership. It hasn't stopped the criminals, no way. Not in any shape or form.
It's a crock. It's making no difference whatsoever. I mean, the people in the street, they're going to get their guns anyway. No problem.
Facts that don't matter, because many countries are already enforcing the UN's agenda.
Canada is leading the charge on this beyond any doubt whatsoever. They even have committees in Ottawa specifically set up to implement the United Nations gun control programs.
Our government won't tell us what they're planning. What they've said carte blanche is that these UN regulations have got to be included in our national legislation. I think it's a very dangerous situation.
A program of action is a beginning, not an end in itself. Implementation will be the true test.
The ultimate goal? An international treaty that would be binding.
Unlike a law, unlike a statute which can be made today and changed tomorrow, an international treaty is forever.
If it wasn't for the NRA's presence at the United Nations, everything would have been lost years ago.
Make no mistake, this treaty will snuff out the Second Amendment if the anti-gun forces succeed in electing an anti-gun president and an anti-gun Senate.
The United Nations is as much a threat to our right to keep and bear arms in this country as is Handgun Control Inc. or George Soros. Their agenda is very dangerous, it is very clear, and it is very sinister.
But on that day, when a treaty is ratified, your gun rights, guaranteed by the Constitution, will be gone.
This is not an issue only for gun owners. It's an issue for everybody who believes in our Constitution and democratic governance.
You need to go to your congressmen and to your senators and tell them that in no uncertain terms the United States government should not back the United Nations programs.
They're treading on dangerous ground, and you cannot let your guard down ever.
Let there be no doubt. Dictators around the world hate the United States because the United States is free. They're scared of your guns and they're going to come and get them.
Shortly thereafter, this same unit, the 502nd, was in Arkansas practicing house-to-house searches and seizures in a joint UN training mission called Agile Provider in the spring of 1994. Agile Provider involved 44,000 UN troops, including troops from France and the Netherlands, training in the states of Georgia, North and South Carolina, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Yes, UN troops have been trained in this country in the past, but not in brigade strengths and not in domestic support house-to-house searches and seizures. Many of our congressmen deny that UN troops are being trained in this country at all. But as you can see in these clips from Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, Germans were training here last spring.
Das ist die Baracke 1660, die da. Vom zweiten Zug hinschollen,
UN training has become so widespread that many of the newspapers around the country have had at least one such story.
The convergence of globalization and technology has created a new brand of terrorism. There were persons who, for whatever reason, came to view their home country as the enemy.
Right now, it looks like there is no connection between the men arrested and any known terrorist cell. Homegrown. Homegrown, I should say.
The kind of right-wing, religious-based domestic terrorism.
Disturbing news tonight about homegrown terror.
Part of this is big change in the White House, a new cultural experience, and some of the crazies are coming out of their closet.
Folks, we've got a very serious situation here. I'm holding what is called the right-wing extremism, current economic and political climate, fueling resurgence and radicalization and recruitment. And in it, we talked about the fact that they define pro-lifers as domestic terrorists. They put this in a Department of Homeland Security document, this official assessment, now saying pro-lifers, people that believe in end-time prophecies, people that are opposed to the administration's position on immigration, those of us that are standing up for the sanctity of life and for the sanctity of marriage, all of those are now potential, and this is what they're saying, domestic terrorists.
It's a terrorist next door that could be our bigger threat.
They call people who believe in the sanctity of life, who believe in owning firearms, who believe in serving their country in the military and coming back, who are very concerned about the policies that this nation is embarking on, spending too much money, taxing too much. It's all listed right here. These are the domestic right-wing extremists.
1 million names under the watchful eye of the United States. America's so-called terrorist watch list has hit the record number according to one of the country's most prominent civil liberties groups.
That's a lot of people to keep track of. They're adding new people all the time.
It's a secret list that you don't know really quite how one gets on and you don't know how you get off.
They're coming out and profiling huge groups of people. You know, if you voted for a certain political candidate, you should be considered a potential threat. And you couple that with things like the Patriot Act, where if you are a threat in their eyes, you can be held without access to judge, jury, and without access to a lawyer or even to your family. That's very concerning because we've watched our country go through and do this to brown people, you know, overseas. They're rounding up enemy combatants and they're putting them in camps and they are torturing them. That is a fact. We know that. In Missouri, a new document meant to help Missouri law enforcement agencies identify militia members or domestic terrorists has drawn criticism. The February 20 report called the Modern Militia Movement mentions such red flags as political bumper stickers for third-party candidates, such as Ron Paul, who ran for president, talk of conspiracy theories such as the plan for a superhighway linking Canada to Mexico, and possession of subversive literature. So the state police in Missouri have been told that if you see a car with a bumper sticker that opposes the so-called creation of North American Union, the superhighway, that you are probably following a militia member, that you are following an anti-government radical. If you see a car with a bumper sticker that says Ron Paul for president, you might be dealing with a violent radical
exercise extreme caution.
We do know that 28% of their funding comes from the Department of Homeland Security. This is not the first time that a report has been issued to Missouri law enforcement and surrounding fusion centers in other states by the MIAC Center.
Previously, there have been several reports, such as the MIAC report in the state of Missouri, but this is the first time that a report such as this actually named individuals. Once you label someone in a derogatory manner, an extremist, a potential militia member, terrorist, whatever term is used, for some people the moniker will remain. Before you can persecute a people, before you can incarcerate large numbers of people, you have to marginalize them. You have to create the image that these people are dangerous to society, or they're extremists or radicals. Call them what you will. But marginalize them from the mainstream of society so that at that point the rest of society will accept the persecution that might result upon this group. It's been an age-old strategy that's worked in every totalitarian regime in the history of the world, and that's why we're concerned here in the United States when we see this kind of marginalization going on about people who voted for Ron Paul, or people who voted for Chuck Baldwin. Why are they being marginalized? Why are they being singled out as a potential danger to society? And I think it's shades of the strategies and tactics of totalitarian regimes in history past, and that should never happen in this country.
The people in Washington, D.C. haven't represented what was on the American people's minds for a long, long time. They are the most disassociated, discombobulated, disconnected people on this planet. And they necessarily had to do that for all the violations of the Constitution that they've done.
Just how far are you willing to go before you stand up and say no more to the federal government?
This official news release from the Navy High Command at LANTCOM further confirms that UN troops were training in this country this past spring in forcible entries of homes using special operations tactics. News releases from around the country speak of law enforcement and military training together for so-called terrorist suppression involving attacks on civilian facilities. Did you know that 49 of our most famous landmarks have been given to the United Nations as supposed biospheres? Yet many of these supposed biospheres are located outside military facilities and are used for covert UN military special operations training areas. On the border between the U.S. and Canada, we see the UN flag flying between the U.S. and Canadian flags. Throughout cities in America, UN flags are popping up outside government buildings. But perhaps most disturbing was this letter received by New American Magazine detailing a survey given to Marines at 29 Palms Base. We confirmed this survey was given to Army Special Operations recruits. The survey asked troops whether they would swear to the following code. I am a United Nations fighting person. I serve in the forces which maintain world peace and every nation's way of life. I am prepared to give my life in their defense. This survey also asked if these U.S. military men would fire upon U.S. citizens who refuse or resist confiscation of firearms banned by the U.S. government. Did you notice the federal tax agents dressed like military patrolling the roads during the Waco siege, or the black military helicopters at each of the Indy 500 races for the past several years? We found that these state facilities are being built in the middle of U.S. Army property, not just in Indiana, but other states, as people sent us pictures of such facilities in their states, such as this facility at Camp Pinckney in Brighton, Michigan. You see not only the black vans here, but curiously, there are reverse swastikas carved into each end of the roof. We also began to receive information about the Federal Emergency Management Agency known as FEMA, such as these pictures of a FEMA facility in Texas. FEMA operations are divided into 10 regions, as we were told in this letter from FEMA. The American public has been led to believe that FEMA is for disaster relief operations. Yet if we look at military manuals such as FM 4130, the U.S. Army Civil Affairs and Operations Manual, you'll find the details about who FEMA really is. The government doesn't want this information out because, as you can see, the manual says to destroy it by any means that will prevent its dissemination. The manual says that FEMA is the executive agency that serves as the point of contact for the USG for emergency management within the United States. Under Executive Order 12148 of July 20th, 1979, the President transferred all functions from the Civil Defense Civil Preparedness agencies under the Department of Defense to FEMA. FEMA develops and implements overall concepts and policy guidance and directs activities for nationwide plans and preparedness for emergencies during peace and war. It also develops plans, systems, and capabilities for protection of the U.S. populace, government, and industry, and for stabilization of the economy in time of emergency. Again, we see from this military manual that FEMA is divided into 10 regions and is the command and control agency for all emergency planning. None of this sounds too sinister until you begin to find out what FEMA has done with 96% of their budget. FEMA has built prisons around the country, and they've also built underground facilities. It actually turns out that they are the key agency to implement a plan known as Operation Garden Plot, the plan to put American citizens in prison camps. Under Executive Order 12919, signed by Bill Clinton on June 3, 1993, presidential authority under a 1950s Defense Production Act was delegated to the Secretaries of Defense, Agriculture, Treasury, and Commerce to seize all civilian property for the government solely by declaring them necessary for national defense. It also gave the Director of FEMA the authority to implement FEMA plans during a national emergency. Most people don't realize that this country has been in a declared state of emergency since the Federal Emergency Act was enacted in 1933, which was the beginning of FEMA, and also gave presidents the authority to issue executive orders. Each president since then has issued an executive order declaring a state of national emergency. Bill Clinton has issued 3 such orders since he took office. Shown here is a FEMA facility in Denton, Texas, where you can see mile after mile of FEMA command and control trailers. These trailers are self-sustaining and contain electrical generators and communications equipment that can be moved out anywhere in the country to start a FEMA operations center. Several military manuals, such as these manuals, ranging from 1985 through 1994, speak of FEMA as the implementing agency for Operation Garden Plot, the plan to put American citizens in prison camps under military control. This 1994 Field Manual for Military Police speaks of Operation Garden Plot as a DoD civil disturbance plan that tells the military what they can and cannot do, and that they will operate under FEMA control. Several thousand U.S. troops are training in the U.S. this summer and fall, and if we look around us, we can see plenty of the signs and symptoms of a global takeover under the auspices of the United Nations taking place right here in our country. These trucks are Soviet trucks imported from eastern Germany, parked at a private facility in the DeSoto National Forest in Sodier, Mississippi, just outside Gulfport off Highway 59. A sign on the facility says Airmar. Airmar is privately owned, but the signs on fences around the facility say this is a U.S. Customs facility. Several acres of federal forest land was bulldozed to create this customs facility solely for Airmar. No one knows for sure what this facility really is, but one thing is certain, it's not what we're being told it is. And there are 750 Soviet chemical trucks sitting in Mississippi whose sole use is to spray chemicals and nerve gas in chemical warfare operations. What are they doing in Mississippi? What are they doing on U.S. soil? And why are they under the protection of the U.S. government if they are privately owned? Senator Sam Nunn from Georgia was quoted as saying he was certain the American public would welcome the Soviet troops as peacekeeping forces in the United States. Not only have these Soviet trucks been found in Mississippi, people recently photographed these 2 clearly marked Soviet vehicles in Texas. This train full of American-made tanks was one of 7 such trains that passed through Indianapolis en route to Fort Lewis, Washington in June. We were told that this was the 3rd Armored Division returning from Europe. Yet Fort Lewis has such a severe housing shortage that many military families are actually living in tents. Yet this whole division is being sent there. 3 other such trains passed through Indianapolis in early August, one heading to Fort Riley, Kansas, another to Alabama, and the 3rd to Fort Lewis, Washington.
These vehicles right here are heading northbound from Bakersfield. Okay, so you can see here. I want you to take a close look at these vehicles too. Look at them really good. Okay, now this scene right here, this right here is also in Bakersfield. This is a completely different a bunch of vehicles right here. And this is the Grapevine. The Grapevine leads up into Bakersfield right here. And it goes uphill from Southern California. This would be LA, Saugus, leading up towards the Grapevine up into Bakersfield. And as you can see that these are also heading a northerly direction. See? I know they're kind of hard to see, but I want you to just kind of like get the shape of the vehicles here. And well, this is more vehicles in California heading in a northerly direction from Bakersfield. Now, as I already mentioned, that this is Bakersfield is more central. Heading north, you're heading into Northern California. So, as you saw, Sacramento, Beale was right over here, and there's the other Sierra Army Depot over here. So, let me show you Sierra Army Depot here real quick. And I want to show you that there are railroad tracks, see, that lead down into Sacramento. All the way down. There's some that come over here, over here. They go around the mountain here. Oh, this is probably. But let's take a look here. Show you the railroad tracks that come all down through here. Let us take a look at. So, as you can see at this depot here, I bet you're thinking that this is it, right? Oh, is this all where it is? Is this the only one where they're at? I just wanted to show you the railroad tracks. They come from Sacramento area, so you can see that direction going towards Sacramento. And they come right up here, right? See, there's even some, look, there's even some on the back of railroad tracks right here as we're watching it, right on the tracks. See it? See all these military vehicles right here? There's more right here too, right? Look at all these. So let's take a look at where they're going. This whole area right here, and you got railroad tracks. Let's take a look, let's back it up. See all these over here? Wow. These look like they could even be MRAPs of some sort right here, don't they? These look like they may be tanks of some sort. Not sure. But let's look over here to this. I'll just show you down the line. You can already see all these right here. Looks like some that were right on the back of some of those railroad transports. As you can see here, those look like they could be something. And let's just drag it down the line. Take a look. Look at how many are here, folks. Look at how many are parked here. Let's keep looking. There's more. It looks like MRAPs. Over here, see all these? Over here, see all these? See all that? More, all the way down the line. Come over here. But I bet you think, is that all it over there? Now watch this. Look at all those. See these we were just looking at? Look at all these. Look at all those. Look. Look at all this. Look. All this whole area is full of vehicles. Right here. See them. Tanks. Some of them look even like the newer series. See it? Does that look off the wall to you? All over here? Look, we're still over here. See all these? Look at this. Now, do you think that all the vehicles, I just showed you the railroad tracks, and they have military vehicles on the transports right there on the railroad tracks, right over here. I just showed it to you. You saw it. It's over there. And it's heading this direction. And look at all of these. Let me zoom in so I can show you this is not just, these are all military vehicles. And I think that all of the vehicles that we've been seeing on the back of those transports, they look like they're in really good condition. It's just amazing to me that California would be housing these many military vehicles on one military depot. Just one. They're not scattered out through California in different locations, but one. And I just showed you all of those images, all of those videos showing us that military vehicles were being transported northerly direction in California, away from Bakersfield, going up north, and then we saw vehicles in Sacramento being transported north. So I think what you're seeing here is the location where all of those vehicles are being transported to, right here. All right, everybody. It is Sierra Army Depot. That's where you need to come check out all of these right here. See it? And they even go right up into here too. Watch. See it? Look at these. These are all parked forward to front to back, front to back, front to back. These look like some of the ones we were seeing on Colorado footage. Right here.
Are these tanks part of Operation Garden Plot, to be used to round us up for the slave labor camps, along with the black helicopters and federal law enforcement that look like active duty military stationed in our roadways as they were in Waco? Welcome to the New World Order. Expect no mercy.
Wait, is this a railroad track here with let's see. Is this military vehicles on a railroad track? Sure is. There you go. See it? They're on a carrier right here on the railroad tracks. Are they dropping off? Or are they loading up? That's the question.